Like other people who have never experienced adult life uncushioned by wealth and fame, Emma has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is.
Remind me to never mess with JK Rowling, cause she doesn't hold back. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Breaking Brad video where I react to breaking news and viral moments in short form. Today we're going to catch up on some tea, some drama between JK Rowling, the famous author of Harry Potter, and of course, someone who's emerged as a very prominent critic of kind of trans extremism, the trans agenda, and now, I mean, she's just pretty much across the board against the entire concept of trans. And Emma Watson, of course, Hermione actress in Harry Potter, who publicly crapped on JK Rowling, even though she, of course, gave her all her dreams and stardom, and she owes everything to her many times. But apparently now that the tide has shifted politically, culturally, socially, Emma Watson is trying to play nice again and build bridges, but JK is having none of it. Let's watch this video from NBC News summing up the drama.
Public controversy brewing between Harry Potter author JK Rowling and one of the biggest stars of the iconic franchise, opening up in a rare interview for On Purpose with Jay Shetty.
For her to have written that character, created that world, given me an opportunity, there's just no world in which I could ever cancel her out or cancel that out.
She talked about the mixed feelings she holds for Rowling, who has been criticized for supporting anti-trans legislation, but Rowling slamming her comments in a post on X, writing, "Like other people who have never experienced adult life uncushioned by wealth and fame, Emma has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is." Rowling has been outspoken about her beliefs for years. In 2024, Rowling writing an essay in which she questioned whether more people have come out as transgender as a result of a contagion fueled by social media, saying that year on X, "There are no trans kids, no child is born in the wrong body." Watson hoping the online debate can someday happen in person, perhaps even reaching an understanding.
I think the thing I'm most upset about is that a conversation was never made possible.
So you remain open for that dialogue?
Yeah, and I always will.
Oh my gosh. She's so fake. She's such a fraud. A conversation was never made possible because you publicly trashed her. You could have just said, you know, I have my own views, but I'll always love JK. That's literally all you had to say. Instead, you publicly called her a witch because of her different views on transgender issues. Oh my gosh. Now you're like, I will always respect her. I'd love to have dialogue. I don't know, man. I don't really blame JK for taking a hard pass on that one, because when you help someone so much, you're so kind to them, you give them everything, then they publicly crap on you, only to, once the tides change, want to make amends. You have no obligation to accept that. You really don't. And I want to go over JK's really lengthy Twitter thread she posted about this, because there's some fascinating tidbits in there. But first, do hit the like button, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. And now let's look at this thread, because she really did not hold back. So JK Rowling wrote, "I'm seeing quite a bit of comment about this, so I want to make a couple of points," referring, of course, to the podcast clip we watched. "I'm not owed eternal agreement from any actor who once played a character I created. The idea is as ludicrous as me checking with the boss I had when I was 21 for what opinions I should hold these days. Emma Watson and her co-stars have every right to embrace gender identity ideology. Such beliefs are legally protected, and I wouldn't want to see any of them threatened with loss of work or violence or death because of them." Let's just pause here on this for a moment and say, like, that's the thing. She's not slamming the door on Emma Watson because she has a pro-trans agenda perspective. That's not what's happening here. She never got mad at them just for having a different opinion, but they actively threw her under the bus for it. And that's a different situation than them just saying, you know, JK has every right to her views. I personally do believe, you know, trans women are women, whatever. And I think it's important to note that JK is not just being spiteful for a difference of opinion. Anyway, she continued. However, Emma and Dan in particular have both made it clear over the last few years that they think our former professional association gives them a particular right, nay obligation, to critique me and my views in public. Years after they finished acting in Potter, they continue to assume the role of de facto spokespeople for the world I created. When you've known people since they were 10 years old, it's hard to shake a certain protectiveness. Until quite recently, I hadn't managed to throw off the memory of children who needed to be gently coaxed through their dialogue in a big, scary film studio. For the past few years, I've repeatedly declined invitations from journalists to comment on Emma specifically, most notably on the witch trials of JK Rowling. Ironically, I told the producers that I didn't want her to be hounded as the result of anything I said. This is really interesting because I listened to that whole podcast series, and if you've never have, you really should. The Witch Trials of JK Rowling. It was done by the Free Press, and it was really interesting. And it shows that JK is not a villain. You know, I might not agree with her on everything. I don't agree with every tweet she puts out, but she's not this evil person. And the way she was treated was absolutely insane. For just questioning gender identity and trans activism and other stuff. A lot of her positions have become majority positions now. But anyway, it is interesting now that she says that. I don't remember her going after Emma Watson at all, even though Emma had gone after her plenty, including, again, publicly calling her a witch. Now, she shares this and she's explaining why she's choosing to speak out against Emma now because of this podcast clip and the discussion it's generated. Now, this tweet thread was in response to a clip of a GB News segment. The television presenter in the attached clip highlights Emma's all witches speech, and in truth, that was a turning point for me, but it had a postscript that hurt far more than the speech itself. Emma asked someone to pass on a handwritten note from her to me, which contained the single sentence, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through." She has my phone number. This was back when the death, RAPE, and TORTURE threats against me were at their peak, at a time when my personal security measures had to be tightened considerably and I was constantly worried for my family's safety. Emma had just publicly poured more petrol on the flames, yet thought a one-line expression of concern from her would reassure me of her fundamental sympathy and kindness. Wow, this is such two-faced behavior. So you're publicly throwing her under the bus and saying, she's a witch, she's so mean because of her trans views, and you know that she's being absolutely inundated with threats and harassment, and I don't think you're necessarily to blame for that just because you publicly criticize her, but you know that's going on, and God forbid you make a public statement in her defense or even contact her personally. You pass along a handwritten note. That's just to make yourself feel better, Emma Watson, and we all know it. What a slimy person she comes off as in all of this. JK, I mean, I don't agree with her on a whole host of things. After all, she's a liberal feminist in many ways, but she's somebody who just seems to have guts and to say what she believes and to stand on business. And I just have exponentially more respect for that than the two-faced weaselly stuff. Anyway, then we get to the rest of the clip, of the quotes here, where JK talks about how Emma just doesn't understand the concerns that she raised about biological males being able to access women's spaces because she hasn't been through the struggles that JK had. She's lived a life of privilege and comfort since being a child star. I think that's legitimate. Now, here's how JK wraps up this post. The greatest irony here is that had Emma not decided in her most recent interview to declare that she loves and treasures me, a change of tack I suspect she's adopted because she's noticed full-throated condemnation of me is no longer quite as fashionable as it was, I might never have been this honest. Adults can't expect to cozy up to an activist movement that regularly calls for a friend's assassination, then assert their right to the former friend's love, as though the friend was in fact their mother. Emma is rightly free to disagree with me and indeed to discuss her feelings about me in public, but I have the same right, and I've finally decided to exercise it. Guys, I think we can consider that olive branch that Emma Watson extended to JK in this podcast clip, reject it. She really said, hard pass, and I just don't blame her. I really think we do have to be careful not to become kind of like the woke scolds and say, oh, well, you once didn't agree with me, so you're forever bad. If people change their minds, if they evolve to more sane positions, generally speaking, we should welcome them. However, there's a distinction between them personally doing you dirty like this after you gave them the world. You don't have to be their friend again. You don't have to welcome them back in with loving arms. You simply do not. And I don't blame JK at all, because the audacity of these elitist, out of touch child stars to throw her under the bus when they owe her everything. And then when the tides change, be like, oh, but it was always just a difference of opinion, and I always have love for her. I don't know. There's something so fake and so disingenuous about that. And I don't blame JK at all for shutting it down. But of course, this is leading to another round of criticism of her, as if she's just petty and vindictive. And I just don't see it that way. I don't know about you guys, but you can let me know in the comments. Do you sympathize with Emma Watson? Was she just young and confused? I mean, she wasn't that young when she was saying all of this. She was in her 20s. She was an adult, but she wasn't in her 40s. I don't know. Maybe she really was just immature or scared of the activists and the mob coming after her as well. But I don't think it's ever okay to throw away or throw someone under the bus who's given you so much. Yeah. And then to act like you never did anything wrong and it was always just a different opinion. It's a hard pass from me. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. Hit the like button while you're at it. And if you're interested in more of my long form content where I cover internet insanity and social media trends, check out the Brad vs. Everyone podcast on all podcast platforms and linked in the description. And with that, guys, we'll be back with more content real soon.